And remember, I mentioned in my previous slides and on the previous movies, how do we do that? Remember, it's hard to duplicate. The uniqueness, stuff like this. Maybe you have a patent and intellectual property laws to protect you. And in your current status. So where are we right now, and what do we need to move this business forward? Another important section is the management team. So these are some of the qualifications you as an investor are looking for. Does this management team have industry relevant experience? So do they know who the key suppliers are, how the industry works? Maybe the industry is cyclical in nature, so it's boom and bust cycles. Do they understand the competitors? All these types of things. Right? You want to have experienced people, right? Because you're the investor, it's your money, so you want to protect it. Do they have the abilities and technical expertise? Or so can they actually execute the plan? So do they have what they call execution intelligence, and also the technical expertise? Right? So do they understand, for instance, if this involves, let's say, developing a new product, can they actually, engineer it, design it, make it work? Do they have the computer skills to program the computers, and so on? And again, I always talk about complementary skills, is that we just don't want to have, tons of expertise in one area and then big gaps in other areas. Right? So for instance, everyone knows how to do marketing, but no one knows how to run the computer systems. That's not going to help us. So we need to have some diversity of skills. Again, we're looking for a board. If the entrepreneur can get some people with good names on the board, that adds some more credibility, because the investor says, oh geez, so-and-so who has lots of experience, a reputable name, is on this sort of team, then it says my money's maybe in good hands, so I can be a little bit less worried, a little bit less nervous. So it adds a little bit of that sort of credibility. And also, you want to have a good board of directors team, right? You don't want them to all have one skill set. You want them to have complementary skills, because they too can give advice. For general sort of strategy direction. That's what boards tend to do, is the bigger sort of long-run policy type issues. And again, advisors. So can you get a bunch of good advisors? The reason why this again is important is because they're going to, if the company is able to attract top advisors, or have a good mix, so we have some accountants, we have some lawyers on board, the investor might feel like, okay, this is in the hands of professionals who know what they're doing, not a bunch of amateurs. Okay. Again, the structure and intellectual property issues, again, this is important. As an investor, you want to know, how is the company structured? Does it make sense? Do we have the right people in there? Or do we have the wrong people? Or we have someone who can't talk to people, and they're the responsible for marketing communications? Bad choice. Do we have certain areas that aren't being addressed? So maybe the organizational structure is missing certain people. Right? We're talking about organizational structure. The easiest way is to think of this, and this is just one of many options, is you think of the old functional structure. So a business might have someone in charge of marketing, and another department in charge of finance, another department in charge of, let's say, production. Of course, at the earlier stages, that might not even exist. There might be even a more fluid, dynamic structure at the very earliest stages. I'm describing slightly more formalized structure. So that's important as well. Who reports to who? And also, another thing the investor might be worried about is who ultimately is in charge. Is there sort of one person running the show? Sometimes we can have problems if as a family business, if you have like 3 or 4 family members all sort of fighting for control. That's no good from an investor's perspective, because if the family is kind of all fighting with each other, they're not focusing on the customer. So we want to make sure we have solid leadership on the top. We have a solid CEO. Legal structure, again, this is talk about your textbook as well. This is, of course, sole proprietor, partnership, and corporation are the 3 main types. And there's all these other sort of hybrid versions also can exist. Why is this important? Well, this, of course, has implications pertaining to liability issues, right? People who invest in corporations have limited liabilities. So, for instance, the business goes bankrupt, you just lose all the money you invested. Some of these other structures, like partnerships and sole proprietors, have unlimited liability. So if it goes bankrupt, they could come after not only your initial investment, but also maybe your house, your personal property as well. And also for raising funds. Obviously, a sole proprietor is very hard to raise funds because you're the only person who owns this thing, whereas a company that issues shares obviously can get more money much easier. Because, and of course, in particular if it's publicly traded, right? Partnerships help because there's more than one partner, so there's more brains, and more brains, different experiences, need better ideas as well. That's another reason we look at that. And again, intellectual property. How are you protecting your intellectual, intangible strategic resources? So what are you doing to protect your resources so other people don't steal them? And so one solution, of course, is the patents, trademarks, copyrights. And as you'll see in my other lecture I'm working on right now, a lot of this, in Canada anyway, is under jurisdiction of federal court system, as you will see. Industry analysis is very important, right? This, again, we're looking at the industry attractiveness variables, right? You know, we want early in the life cycle, growing sales. Hopefully a rather large industry that's young, lots of profit potential. You want to make sure you have a clearly defined target market. Like, remember in my example in class, we segmented the market, and like with that Dream Dinners example, and hopefully there's not too many competitors there. Or you, as an investor, you want to see that your this entrepreneur has found a segment where there aren't it's not crowded with lots of competitors. Okay, so that's ideal. You don't want tons and tons of competitors who can easily steal away the customers. Marketing plan focuses on the 4 P's of marketing, which are product, price, place, and promotion. So product, again, is the actual, product or service that you provide to the customer. Okay, and a lot of this is backed up by all those concept and usability testing. It says, yes, we have a product that people want. They enjoy it. It creates value for them. And remember that there's different types of value. I mean, like, for instance, some people might buy a car. That's the product, and it's valuable to them because it gets them from here to work every day. So sort of a utility type value. Whereas someone else maybe wants to show off, right? Wants to show off to all their friends how they're rich and successful, so they buy a fancy car. They buy a Mercedes or something. They say, see, I'm rich, I'm successful, I'm refined, or whatever. Pricing, again, different price points. High pricing, like skimming strategies, versus sort of penetration pricing, which are when you set prices really low to penetrate into a market. So this is a very big topic, but that's something you have to look at, because pricing communicates information to customers, and that's why it's important. Place means where you distribute your product. So for instance, let's say you're selling high-end jewelry, you might not want to put it in Walmart, because Walmart's usually not perceived as a really high-end store, right? Same thing, like you might not want to have, let's say you're selling a lower-end sort of product that's meant for low-income people, distributing it through, let's say, a higher-end retailer might not make sense, kind of thing, right? That might, because those types of customers you're targeting won't be buying from there, right? So you want to make sure you're selling your product in the places that your customers will be shopping at, is the idea. And promotion is basically how do you get people to know about your business and your products, and which medium or media to use, right? So it should use TV or radio, or should you sponsor a sports team? Should you not sponsor?